Hey folks, this is Riker with a Diablo 4 Paladin build guide. This is the Tyrael Hammerdin. You want to be zipping around the screen like you're teleporting with an Enigma, with angel wings whipping out and killing your enemies while you are spinning hammers around. This is the fantasy. I love this playstyle. I'm recording this Friday evening. Season 11 launched last night, and this build got me all the way to crushing Torment 4. Now, folks, we're going to see a lot of new Paladin builds emerge over the next week or so. I'm not going to pretend this is the best Paladin build. I just put this together myself. It's a super fun playstyle, and if you follow this guide, you'll be able to complete your season journey and get all the way into Torment 4 comfortably. My Twitch viewers see me play this on stream, and they keep asking me, hey, what build guide are you following? I'm not following a guide, so this is the guide now that I can point everyone to. This is the build that I'm playing. And it all starts with the oath that you're selecting is Disciple. Casting a Disciple skill with a cooldown grants Arbiter. So some skills are labeled Disciple. We're going to be casting those. What Arbiter does, this is a transformational form. It gives you 25% increased move speed, so you're super fast. It's going to replace your evade with an angelic leap, and wing strikes attack around you, dealing some damage. And these wing strikes are actually the brunt of your damage. Your hammers are really just supplementary. In the lower levels, a lot more of your damage will be coming from the hammers, but eventually we're working towards buffing these wing strikes because they can really, really stack up. Now, if you folks are not level 60 yet, you should check out my previous guide. You can find it linked right here. That video covers the 1 to 60, which is still mostly the same, but when I got to level 60 and I started optimizing further, I've made some changes to the build as follows. For our basic, we're taking Holy Bolt with the Divine Bolt enhancement. This is to apply vulnerable to enemies. We are stacking vulnerable damage. We are getting Blessed Hammer Disciples Halo. That's going to make the hammers circle around with us. Then for our aura, a change from lower level. Things are going to start hitting hard in the higher torments. I swapped to Defiance aura because I really needed the toughness. And this really solved a lot of my dying issues. So Defiance aura gives you more armor and more resists. With Rite of Prayer, you're also gaining some life per second. And if you're playing in a party, Healing Allies is going to grant you Resolve stacks, and Resolve is going to give you damage reduction. Then just 1 point into Falling Star because we don't care about the damage and more points only increase the damage. Falling Star is your teleport, your mobility skill. It's going to be making enemies vulnerable. We're going to take Free Fall to gain an additional charge. So because this is a Disciple skill and it has a cooldown whenever we are popping it, we are going to be, as per our oath, getting our Arbiter form. Also, killing a vulnerable enemy reduces the cooldown of Falling Star by 1 second, so enemies will always be vulnerable. As we kill them, we are reducing that cooldown, so we are zipping around the screen. Then we're taking 1 point into Condemn. This is another Disciple skill with a cooldown, again for more Arbiter. This is going to pull in enemies. And we are taking the 1 additional charge. That's again so that we can pop these more often, more consistently to keep triggering our Arbiter. And we're also applying Vulnerable. Then lastly, we are getting Arbiter of Justice. We can maintain 100% uptime. This is what transforms us into Tyrael. As you can see, my cooldown is 42 seconds, but the form lasts 63 seconds. I am way overkill on being able to maintain 100% uptime on this. And we are taking Seraph's Wings. This gives us more move speed. We move super fast. Wing strikes deal a ton more damage, and we're always making nearby enemies vulnerable. Then lastly, we're taking Exaltation. During Arbiter, your damage is increased by 85%, and wing strikes strike 1 additional time. For our passives, we're getting 3 points into Master Craftwork for more armor. This is a shield build, so we're working on a lot of synergies between armor and shield block chance. My current shield block chance is like 97%. 1 point into Shining Armor in order to get 3 points into Giant Slayer. That helps against elites, as well as healthy enemies. And we're putting 3 points into Sacred Arms, just for a 15% chance to ignore damage altogether. We are putting 3 points into Crack in the Armor, more damage against vulnerable enemies. And 3 points into High Charity for big cooldown reduction. 3 points into Righteousness for increased holy damage. We are dealing holy damage. 3 points into Iron Sharpens Iron for more crit strike damage. 3 points into Break the Line. This gives us increased crit strike chance and damage against weakened enemies. we're going to be relying on a piece of gear to make enemies weakened. If you do not have that piece of gear, which we'll get to later, don't put the points into that, put them elsewhere. 3 points into heavyweight, increased crit strike damage while you are healthy, and press the advantage, 3 points for increased damage reduction whenever we crit. Higher in the tree here, we are getting 3 points into En Garde for more armor and more block chance. 3 points into Riposte, blocking grants you more damage, and 3 points into Disciple, core skills deal increased damage. Again, Blessed Hammer isn't the biggest contributor to our damage, but it is filling in some damage. So the playstyle, Holy Bolt is serving as a generator at range to start engaging enemies. It also is going to apply Vulnerable. It's also generating our resource Faith. You don't have to pop it all that often because Blessed Hammer is not going to consume too much resource. You're able to spam it quite a bit, and your sustain is pretty good with this build. So just spam those Blessed Hammers. They're going to spin around you and follow you as you're moving around. Falling Star to move from pack to pack, as well as to engage with enemies, and just pop it every few seconds as well to ensure you are maintaining your Arbiter form. You're going to see this little blue circle here. That's going to fill up. As that is going down, make sure you are popping your Disciple skills as they are coming up on cooldown. Condemn, another Disciple skill. That's another one you're going to zoop enemies in, apply Vulnerable. But ultimately, once you're reaching a point where you're going to have Arbiter of Justice on at all times, it becomes less important to be applying Vulnerable through these other means. And these really are just ways of popping and maintaining our Arbiter. It's also nice to group enemies. Then Defiance Aura, the active on this is you become unstoppable. So if ever you're hard crowd controlled, you can pop that, but really it's just passively doing its thing. Then Arbiter of Justice, again, you ought to have 100% uptime on this, but in case you don't yet have 100% uptime, you want to pop it right before you engage. We're going to have a number of buffs that are stacking up the longer we maintain our Arbiter form, so you don't want to just pop it when there's no enemies around and then it falls off. You want to pop it at the start of an engagement that you're expecting, and then you keep going and going and going, maintaining this form, letting your buffs stack up. Because now we're going to go to our Paragon board where a lot of power is coming from here. Now I'm only Paragon 143, so this is not a completed board, but we're going to talk through some thought starters. So on your starting board here, I'm taking the Arbiter glyph. This is giving us more wing strike damage. It's also making us deal increased damage for each second we are in Arbiter form. For the next board, I'm taking Castle. This is the strongest Paladin node, period. This one legendary is giving me 600% more damage. That is 7 times more damage right here. This is going to get nerfed. Maybe it'll last a season. Maybe it won't last a week. This is giving me 7 times more damage. And that's why as well we're stacking so much armor. For the glyph socket, we are taking Apostle, more Disciple damage. And remember, our wingtips are being classified as Disciple damage now. We're also dealing more damage to vulnerable enemies. Over to the right here, I am taking Shield Bearer. You deal increased damage equal to 110% of your block chance. That's doubling my damage right there. Then here we are taking Imbiber. This is giving us more damage while healthy. You also gain 5% increased damage and 5% increased potion healing for each missing healing potion. Not exactly an enormous buff here, but it's helping out. Then up here, we are taking the Divinity node. While in Arbiter form, 90% increased damage against vulnerable enemies. And we are taking the Exploit glyph, plus 20% vulnerable damage, and when an enemy is damaged by you, they become vulnerable. Then lastly, we are getting Relentless. While moving and for 2 seconds after, you deal 80% increased damage and have 30% cooldown reduction. You want to be moving all the time. That cooldown reduction, yes, it's going to help tremendously with Arbiter of Justice, but also just for all of your other skills. And ultimately for this glyph socket, I'm probably going to go with Turf. This is going to give increased damage to close targets. That's especially useful for the wings. The wings are only hitting close enemies. When you're more focused on the hammers, it's not as important, but as you're building more and more into this wing meta, dealing damage to close enemies becomes important. You're also getting damage reduction against close enemies. Now, gear-wise, defensive aspect, Indomitable. Gain armor based on your block chance. Big buff to your armor there. Again, it's that synergy between armor and block chance that we're working on. For our temper, Arbiter duration. We really want to make Arbiter last longer. We want to always have this little blue bubble up. We never want that to drop. The runes I put in here are Yulgar. That's whenever you cast a skill with a cooldown, which we're doing very often. We are going to gain crit strike chance up to 25%. You know the synergy that we had there with crit strikes. Another aspect that we want is the Disciple. Your Disciple skills now weaken enemies. Remember we said that we were looking for a way to weaken enemies? Once you get this aspect, then you build in those passives against weakened enemies. I also happen to get +3 to Defiance Aura on this, which is really strong for buffing our defenses. The runes I have in here, I have Circuit. They're not that good. You can probably find something better. Gloves, we have Tyrael's Jurisdiction. I just swapped to this. Arbiter's Wing Strikes now seek nearby enemies and deal increased damage. So buffing up those Wing Strikes. Now prior to this, I had an aspect, I forgot what it's called, but it buffs holy damage and fire damage. It gives you a 60 to 70% multiplier on damage. It's good, and it helps especially when you are still using your blessed hammers, but eventually Tyrael's Jurisdiction is going to be your best in slot as one of your offensive aspects. Doesn't have to be gloves, but you do want that as one of your offensive aspects. On gloves, you want more Arbiter Duration. For your pants, I ended up going with Disobedience here to stack more armor. And for the temper, I put On Guard. If you remember, On Guard is the one that gives us, it's the passive over here, that gives us more block chance and armor. For our boots, just wanted some more move speed here, so Unstoppable Force, gain move speed, double this while you're unhindered or unstoppable. With our Defiance Aura active, we are becoming unstoppable. Again, we put some more Arbiter Duration here. There's probably other boots we can swap to. We have a lot of move speed. I just like being really fast. But if you want to take off some move speed, there's other options you can go with as well. For our weapon, ideally a flail for the vulnerable damage, but then Ascension is the aspect. Casting a skill that grants Arbiter form increases your damage by up to 12%, stacking up to 10 times. That's going to be potentially 120% more damage. You lose all stacks when you leave Arbiter form. That's why it's so important. Once you enter Arbiter, you do not leave it because you're going to drop off so many buffs. And for the temper here, we want Wing Strike damage. And now apparently you can crit on tempers. I got a crit on my Wing Strike damage temper. I also sanctified this item and I rolled off chance to apply vulnerable into attack speed. I got so lucky. This was like an amazing Gamba Slam on my sanctification here. Now, a very important unique item here, the Sanctus of Kethamar. You're going to get this from Lord Zir. Arbiter form increases aura potency by 30%. Cool. And Wing Strike damage by up to 400%. 400% more damage means 5 times the damage. It doesn't mean 4 times the damage because 100% damage increase is not 1 time the damage, it's 2 times the damage, right? So you always add 1 to what it seems like it should be. So 400% more damage means 5 times the damage. This is an enormous buff to the build. Also, this comes with, on the amulet, chance for Arbiter to deal double damage. I happened to crit on my masterworking here, and now this one item is giving me all the double damage that I need. Typically, between your weapon and shield and amulet, you would want to be stacking up chance for Arbiter to deal double damage. So preferentially on your weapon, before you get this amulet, you would rather have chance to deal double damage. Same thing with the shield as well. So chance to deal double damage temper there with Arbiter, as well as on that. But if you get lucky and you can replace that entirely with your amulet, then don't worry about it. There's no point in having over 100% double damage. Other aspects you'll want, Lajira's Sovereignty. Your Disciple skills deal 60% increased damage. So that's another 60% damage multiplier right there. For my temper here, I rolled Arbiter of Justice cooldown reduction. That's to maintain a permanent uptime on the alt. My other ring, really good one, Vehement Brawler here. Casting an ultimate skill increases your damage by 16% for 8 seconds and gain 2 additional ultimate ranks. So that's what's giving me 7 out of 5 ranks in Arbiter of Justice. And again, Arbiter of Justice cooldown reduction. Now, Once I was able to afford losing a shield that gave me chance for double damage to Arbiter, I swapped to Herald of Zakarum. This is farmed off of the Mephisto Wolf, the Harbinger. This is not a critical item, but it gives you quite a bit more block chance, and it's also giving you 26 up to 50% increased strength, resistance, and armor. Retribution chance is nice, but really it's those first three that are just going to benefit any build. This is like a pretty good, just generic, unique Paladin shield. But I'll reiterate, folks, none of the uniques were mandatory for this build, but getting, if you are to get one unique, the Sanctus of Kethamar is the biggest damage upgrade that you can get. This is really as well what gets you to lean into being more based on Wing Strike over hammers. And if you're still based on hammers earlier in the game, you can always go with the flail here, Herald's Morning Star. This will give you chance for Blessed Hammer to deal double damage and a +3 to Blessed Hammer as well. And there's allegedly another amulet called Judgment of Oriel. This makes Arbiter of Justice gain all skill upgrades and grants you 4% increased damage and damage reduction for each skill rank it has while in Arbiter form. This bonus doubles for 30 seconds after Arbiter of Justice lands. Now, I have not found the item, so I've not had a chance to test it. You can either have one of the amulets or the other. I think this one is better if you want to be fully Wing Strike based. I think this is a bigger damage multiplier, but the Judgment of Oriel serves as a more defensive option while still buffing your damage and giving more general utility. But if you happen to get Judgment of Oriel first, equip that, and you can always play around and see which one you like better. So that's my quick guide, folks. Again, this crushes T4. I'm sure there's a lot of optimizations to be made. As I'm going through it right now, I can see I have a lot of redundant vulnerable damage. It wasn't redundant earlier on, but I'm at a point now where I'm applying vulnerable constantly, so I can probably squeeze out some more damage here and there. But I turn the question to you folks. What Paladin builds have you been playing? Have you been playing a similar build? What optimizations do you see here? Sound off in the comments, because that's going to wrap up this video. But before we finish, folks, a quick note. If you want to get your name on the Rikers Raiders 2025 Patreon t-shirt. So this is previous year. You can buy these in the shop. If you want your name on the shirt to live on forever as part of the community, even just a $1 pledge by the end of December will get your name on the shirt. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to my Patreon supporters for making these videos possible. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to join Rikers Raiders for more Diablo content.